All right, back for another round. Cougar, I'm working on my house. Actually working on the fence. House comes later. Yesterday I did some of this. I'm still kind of experimenting with how all this is going to work. Playing around with the audio and the video, this Logitech webcam and some other things. So may change the format at some point. Improve my lighting, although that's a little bit bright. Let's try something. That's better. So still working on the fence. I took down a little more of the fence yesterday than I thought I was going to. I was putting in a post. The post is in. Put it in last night. The concrete will have cured by now. So I'm going to have to put up probably one more post. I'm not sure where I'm going to get the post. One I can pull out of the ground. Maybe I'll reuse it. We'll see. And but I have a whole bunch of fence boards that I pulled down yesterday afternoon, kind of in the course of things. And one of the things I wanted to discuss regarding these boards is how I reuse redwood fence boards. Now, a lot of people will look at their backyard fence and they'll see the redwood. It's got gray, it's split in places. The knots have sort of become eroded with the weather, and it looks funky, and the boards are cupped and whatever else is going on. Maybe even the nails have rusted out of the nails have rusted out of the rails, and the boards are coming off. So they look at that and they say, "Oh, gee, what a mess!" And then they call somebody on the phone. They come out. Well, now I learned a decade ago that those boards go to the landfill. The contractors will often, as part of the deal, agree to take the wood and dispose of it when they put the new wood up. You don't have to deal with the old wood. Sometimes, if homeowners are doing the work themselves, which is perfectly feasible, it's not hard at all to do, work redwood fencing, they just put the boards out front, or they put them on the side of the house, and then they tell the neighbors, "Hey, I got some redwood boards. Come get them if you want." So I learned decades ago that there's no shortage of availability of these lightly used redwood boards. And I say lightly used because it turns out with just a little bit of work, you get a beautiful piece of wood. Now, I'll be discussing how to do that, what equipment I use, and you'll come back and you'll say, well, wow, that's a lot of equipment just to salvage a redwood board. One of the things I want to say right up front is, other than the boards I'm fixing now, which I put up 15 years ago when I bought this property, I haven't bought a serious amount of redwood boards in that time. There's a few projects, but like the siding on my house, the siding on the garage, the wood I built to build the gates and the garage doors, nearly all of that is recycled. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful wood. It's even more attractive when it's gone through the planer and you finish, you smooth the surface. When you buy the redwood at the box shop, it's rough cut, okay, and that's great for a fence, so nobody cares. And it's kind of a rustic look. It's sort of the look you expect to see. But when you run that thing lightly through the planer, which is not the same as sanding at all, okay, because the planer has knives, and the knives cut the wood off, and they leave a smooth surface, just like a knife cutting butter, okay? And not like a chainsaw or sandpaper or anything else. It just slices it off. And so when you run that thing through those knives, it comes out smooth. And the grain is all there on the surface. And redwood has beautiful grain, I think. I know it's not good for much of anything else, like making cabinetry or whatnot, but for fence boards, the grain is amazing. And you bring it out when you run it through the planer. So that's kind of the philosophy of it. There are lots of good environmental reasons to try and recycle redwood. I'll be talking about those as I go along here, but basically I want to get into it, and we'll have the discussion as we go. So the order of operations, I've already pulled the fence down. I have the boards stacked here. I think you can almost see them. Tilt this a little bit. There you go. So there's a stack of boards. That's 9 boards for a decent 8-foot section of, well, that wasn't 8. That was actually the small end section because I already pulled off the boards for the 8-foot section. These are stacked against the back of the shop. You see them over there, right there. Those are the ones that came off of the open 8-foot section of fence. And then at the end of the day, when I decided I had to take down more, I pulled these down off of like a 6-foot section of fence. So I ended up with more. And rather than do this piecemeal, what I think I'll do is finish these, clean them up, plane them, put the fence stain on them, and then I'll finish building the fence, which is the posts and the rails, and then I'll just put all the boards at the same time. It's a little more efficient, and also the prep of the wood and the painting of the wood takes time because the wood has to be painted on both sides. This is a good neighbor fence, so I'm painting both sides. Everyone gets to see the same beautiful wood. I'm planing both sides, painting both sides, and then that means that the paint needs some time to dry. It tends to be a little bit sticky. It's kind of latex based, and it tends to be a little bit sticky until it's really had a chance to cure. Now, on a hot day like this, it's never hot in the South Bay, but we have good breeze, it's warm, it should cure pretty quickly. But nevertheless, I like to combine operations. So I'll work on the boards first, put a coat of paint on one side, and then I'll set those aside, and I'll go work on the fence, working on the posts and the rails and all that. And by the time I'm done with that, I can come back at some point, maybe during that operation, I'll come back and I'll paint the second side, let that cure, go back and work on the fence. And then by the time I'm done working on the fence, it's built, everything on, all the mechanism and infrastructure is there to hold the boards. Then I'll come back and I'll put the boards up and everything should be groovy, okay? Order of operations is kind of how you do these things efficiently. So that's where that's headed. There's a lot of work has to be done to these boards. They look bad. By anybody's measure, they're garbage, right? So I have a little, I've got these DeWalt tables. They're folding tables. I'll even show you how these work. These are several kinds of slick. I've got 4 of them now. And I'm really happy with them. Just the right height for the workbenches, and they fold up and move around. They're plastic, so you can kind of leave them out a little bit in the weather. You don't feel too bad about it. So I'll just show you one of these. Fold it up first. This one's kind of broken because I dropped a branch on it. All right, so there we go. So this one's, I don't know what they're called. They're just, it's a big DeWalt bench. It's about 2 by 3, I guess, or maybe a little less. It's got a nice carry handle and it doesn't weigh much. 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds. It's got folding legs. They're folded up right now. This one, I really shouldn't be showing this one because I dropped a tree on this. Although, in fairness, it survived, so they're built pretty tough. I dropped a branch on it, so one of the legs is a little bit sprung. But yeah, so I have several of these, and these kind of things are invaluable when you're working with production work like this, where you have your wood stacked, you're planing your wood, you're restacking it, you're painting it, you store the painted wood, and there's a little button you push, and you pull up on this other handle, and the legs pop out. Okay, so can't do it up here. And like I said, this one's a little bit barked. There we go. It needs a little bit of gravity, I'm afraid. There we go. Anyway, so I have 4 of these, and every time I go to the box shop, I find a couple more on display, and I'll just pick up another one because every day I work, it's like, man, I wish I had another one of those folding tables. So I also have a lot of these Burrow brand sawhorses. Um, you can buy these little sawhorse kits. It's like a little clamp. You can put a 2x6 or 2x8 in. You clamp it on the 2x8, and then the legs go on the scissor part of the clamp. And you can make your own sawhorses that way. And if you're working with a lot of wood, you think, oh, I got lots of scrap wood. I'll make my own sawhorses. I don't find those to be much good. So I've been buying these Burrow brand sawhorses. These are badly termited. They got stored behind the barn or something and neglected, and they got wet and leaves all over them. I dug them out of the leaves, scraped the leaves all off. They're badly termited. I even had to put some new staples in the plywood gussets that are on the plates that are on the end to hold the legs together, but they still work. The other thing I have a lot of are these folding plastic sawhorses. These are real cheap. They're not wood, so they will not termite. And normally the plastic ones maybe don't work too well. They're kind of weak and fold up real quick. This is Husky. I don't buy a lot of Husky stuff, but I did buy this. And they just fold out. They're an A-frame, little A-frame sawhorse. And they got a little shelf here. You can put your hammer on or your staples, whatever you might have laying around. I think this is for, these cleats are for wrapping a cord around, so you can have a cord with this, store the two together, all this kind of stuff. I don't know what they're rated at, maybe 100 pounds a piece or 200 pounds a piece. But anyway, I've got several of these, and these are also my workhorses. They fold up nice, and if you do store them behind the garage or alongside of a workshop or something, and you leave them for a year and they get leaves all over them, and, well, they're plastic. The termites aren't going to eat them. You can bring them out, spray them off with a hose, and they're pretty much as good as new. So, and they have this nice work surface here, and it's plastic. So when I'm ripping plywood or something, and the saw blade goes through it, just doesn't hurt anything. It just cuts some plastic. It's no big deal. So there's no nails in it. It also has this really nice feature that I think is pretty cool. These slots, there's one here and there's one here. These are sized for a 2x4. So if you have two of these things and you want to put them pretty far apart, but you're worried that your workpiece, like if it's plywood or drywall, will fall into a bow in between them, then you can just take two 8-foot 2x4 studs or something, and take your supports and open them up, put them 6 feet apart or so, and then put those 2x4s in. You just drop them in, and now you've got a workbench. And you put a piece of plywood on it. It's a firm workbench, and if that's the plywood you're going to cut, well, it's not bowed in the middle because it's sagging. It's supported, so you can just cut through that thing. It's not a big deal. So these are really handy. I've got 4 or 5 of these different brands. I think Works makes them. WORX, I think, is the name of the company. Husky makes them. And so if we're doing production work where you need a lot of surfaces, a combination of these folding DeWalt or similar tables, a bunch of these tough plastic supports that can be made into workbenches if you need it, and then you can do production work. The thing when I have a lot of one thing to do, I don't like to have to break the set and rebuild everything, and I don't have a lot of space, so I end up doing a lot of that anyway. But if I'm going to be planing 40 boards, and stacking 40 boards, and painting 40 boards, and drying 40 boards, then I want a lot of this kind of stuff all over the property. Okay, I call it production work, and I just go at it hammer and tongs for 4 or 5 hours, and it's very efficient. I'm not having to move a bunch of stuff, to lay out a bunch of stuff, and move that stuff to put in more stuff. I just take up the whole side yard, and everything is spread out. Of course, it costs money to buy this kind of stuff. If you don't have the money or you don't have the space, then I guess you have to do it differently. But I do so much of this kind of stuff, production work of various kinds, that I've learned that my time is important, and anything I can do to make myself more efficient, I do that. And you'll hear craftspeople, and contractors, and builders, and carpenters say that all the time. They say that all the time. anything that makes me more efficient or saves me time, I spend money on it. All right. If you're working for clients, then the money actually you'll probably just get it out of them, right? You're factoring into your costs whatever tools and techniques you're going to need to be effective. If you're working for yourself, then maybe you don't care, but there's a frustration factor too. Constantly moving things around, stacking over there. Now you can paint, and now you take the painted stuff and you stack something else. It just drives you nuts. So I got several of these, and I use these as drying racks for the wood. I'll set those up here. Those two are ready. Can't see them, they're not in the frame, but that doesn't matter. So let's see if this lighting is going to help us here. So here's a typical board. Yeah, you can see that pretty good. So this is a Redwood fence board. Now this is not an old board. This is like 15 years old. I put this up myself. Show you some of the reasons why people get rid of wood. This actually isn't too bad. No one would throw this fence away, probably. This is not an old fence. And somehow I managed to get really good wood. You can't even get wood like this anymore. In fact, sometimes you'll find someone throwing away a fence and you'll say, wow, there's a lot of wood in that board. And you'll say, because there's so much wood in that board, it's an old board and there's so much wood, I'm going to plane that board down or sand it down. I want to reuse that board. Some of the wood you get now at these box shops, it's maybe 3/4 as thick as this. And there's not much to work with, honestly. Doesn't stop me. But when you see a big, thick redwood board like this, you recognize with experience what you've got. So typical problems with these boards, though, you probably can't see it on the picture. Maybe you can. There you go. It's mildly cupped. So the edges, in this view, the edges are higher than the middle. It's bowed like this, bowed like that. It's pretty straight. Otherwise, it's not twisted. The edges are pretty straight. The mill did a good job with this board, cutting it and whatnot. The surface is pretty rough. It's been rough cut, like I said. That's how they do it. And also, it's been weathered. So as the rain washes down on it, it raises the grain. So the more resistant rings in the tree end up standing up, and the softer wood, or the summer wood, ends up being eroded away. So you've got cupping, you've got erosion, and other things. You've got dirt, cobwebs, whatnot. Make it look ugly, but it really, if you can see beyond the dirt and the erosion and the whatnot, then you kind of get the idea of what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to put that there. Let's see if this works. I think it will. So I'm just going to kind of discuss what I'm doing here. I'm doing a little more of this because you don't need to see me. There we go. Oh, you see my funky little computer. That'll be interesting. So, how do you do this? So I'm going to try and just talk through this, and hopefully you can follow along. I've got a little, I call it a electric screwdriver. It's somewhere between an electric screwdriver and a drill motor. Milwaukee is mostly what I have. So I'm looking right now for broken off screws. Here's two right here. So these are broken off screws. Probably I didn't use the right kind of screws, but the screw heads are here. But the screw is gone. These are stick through. They're broken off. How they broke off, I don't know. Maybe, well, if you use nails, you won't have that problem. The other problem with nails is they worry out the hole over the years of rust and just movement with the weather and the wind, and eventually they just pull free. So the screws will tend not to do that. But these actually broke off. So the first thing I do when I address this board is I go through and find all the broken off pieces. That's just a screw head. That's just half an inch of metal. The rest of it's in the rail, but I throw the rails away. I never managed to recycle the rails. Where's my garbage can? Here. And there's two of them here, so I'm going to take both out. This one's a little longer. You got to be careful when you're working with this old wood and you're going to run it through a planer, if all I was going to do was clean this board up and re-screw it back into a new fence, then I wouldn't have to worry about whether there's staples and nails, all that kind of hoo-ha, because it's not really a problem. But this wood is going to be run through a planer, and I'll talk about my planer in a moment. Where is one? Here it is. So I don't know what these are doing in the end. That's weird. One argument. So that. Now I got the obvious ones out, and I'm going to go over this thing minutely. You the right glasses. I guess I'm going to do. And I look at every hole. So if there's a hole on this side, I flip it over, I look on the other side, I look for either the threads that were broken off, screw, or the head of the screw that broke off. Same thing. Generally not nails. It's really going to be the screws that break off. I guess because they're threaded and the threads are a weak spot. So I don't see anything. I will mention on top of the screws, if your rails are pressure treated, which is one way to do it. Some people don't use Redwood all through the project, including the posts. But if your rails are pressure treated, then you can't really use just any kind of regular fastener. You have to use these stainless steel. These are stainless steel fasteners. Do they even say what it is? It's probably 304, maybe 316, 314. No, that's 314. That's the count. It's either 316 or 304, but they don't say. They probably say somewhere on the material data sheet what it is. But anyway, you use stainless steel because putting a regular iron screw or even a nail into pressure treated wood, it will corrode it, and after a while it won't be there anymore. Okay, it'll just be gone. So not real quick, but it does happen eventually. So if you want to have your fence last, then you should use these either stainless steel or heavily zinc coated screws. Now I bought stainless steel a while back for a different type of project, but now that I have them, I'm going to use them on this fence. They're silver, so they're reflective. They're not red tinted or yellow tinted to hide. They're not trying to be subtle. They're trying to be stainless steel. Okay, so that's what I'll be putting these fence boards back up with. And it's also how I construct the fence using stainless steel. I guess they're expensive. I don't even care. Okay, don't even care. And that's going to be kind of the theme of all this: is it's expensive and I don't even care. Right? More later on why I don't care. So this board looks pretty clean to me, and I'm going to take a brush it down. That isn't strictly necessary because the planer is going to take all this off, but I find that it does help you manage your dust a little bit if you get the dust off. So it also gives you a chance to look at these dirty spots where the leaves collected and to make sure there's nothing hiding in the dirt, because planer blades are not cheap. So, all right, so there's that one. And I'm just going to go through these without saying much. You get the idea. So I'm going to clean it first. Just a heavy brush. So I think I got this out of the, it's called Anvil. I think I got this out of the masonry section. When you're doing masonry, you're clean your bricks and things. So good heavy brush.
Are you doing more boards for this job, honey?
These are the boards, my wife. These are the boards that came off of that last section.
So you're just doing it to fit.
I'm going to do all the boards at once because there's so much time spent painting and drying and whatnot. I'm going to do them all at once. And then while they're drying, I'm going to go work on the fence. And when I get to a point, I can come back, flip these over, paint them again, go back, work on the fence more.
These are all ready to go back as soon as they're done.
No, they're not. They're not ready to go back at
I mean,
all.
when they're done, they'll be ready.
Well, when I plane them and paint them and do all that, yeah, then they're ready to go on the fence. But the fence doesn't exist yet. All I did was set that post last night.
All right, you have a rail.
And I have a lot of work to do on the fence. But I don't want to wait for these things to dry. So I'm going to try and combine operations. I'm going to get these things planed, get them painted, and while the paint is curing, I'm going to go work on the fence.
Do you think you'd ever bring your planer out here so you could show them?
No, I'm not going to bring the planer out here. It's noisy. It needs to be in the garage.
Like it in the
What I'm
garage?
going to do is
Move your operation.
I may move the operation. It's going to be really hard to do because of the of all this hoo-ha. I don't know.
So,
Maybe some other time. So none of this is portable. That's the
do you
problem.
think that the planer could live out here? You still don't think, because you did work on it.
Okay, now that's a fair point. Could I bring
And
the
it's
planer
actually
out?
better maybe.
The planer's on wheels. I need the vacuum cleaner, but I got one right here. Well, I need to bring out the vacuum cleaner, bring out the planer. So maybe I can just do it here in the side yard just for a change and show people how the planer works.
Maybe live right there.
No, there's no living anywhere. This is pretty congested, but I'll bring it out, use it out here, and then I'll put it back. I can do that. Okay?
It'd be nice if it lived out here.
No, we're not going to argue about it. It's too big, and I don't want it out here, and I don't generally use it out here because it's noisy. So
But now
I'll
you
use
got
it
a
out here.
quieter one. It might be good.
Whatever. Now we're arguing. I don't want to argue. I'll use it out here, and then I'll put it back. All right. So she says I could bring the planer out where the camera is. That's probably a good idea. So, but it is noisy, and it is expensive, and it takes up a lot of space, and it can't really live out here. So I can already see a lot of screws in this. So that's why you really have to do this. You really have to clean it up. The edges, not so much. I clean the edges because I'm going to actually put some stain on the edges. I like everything to be covered. That way you don't see any pieces of wood. The boards are never straight. Sometimes they're bowed. So when you have one board next to another, one board may be sticking out. And if you didn't paint the edges, that sticking out piece, even if it's just an eighth of an inch, will be visible. And you'll say, that didn't get painted. That's just how the human brain works, right? So paint everything. Paint it even if you think it's never going to be seen. Well, that's not exactly true, but definitely paint it if it's something like this. So there's a broken off screw here. There's a broken off screw there. There's two actually. So I'm going to now, this one has a head on it, so I'm going to use my handy dandy to just turn that out. That's good. This one, no, it did not. So broken off screw, no head. What do? I use a pair of vice grips of some kind. Any brand will do. Too cheap. Gives you a lot of grief. What I do is I find the broken off threads and I put this vice grip on. And I either pull it out. This time it came straight out. Or if you can't, well then you can turn it out. You just put a handle on it. So it's just barely sticking out, but it should still work. Turn it just like you were turning it with a screwdriver. The head is gone, so the vice grips basically act as a head. Yeah, that's not looking. There must be. There is a head on that. Okay, I'm trying it the wrong direction. It's supposed to be this side. Well, there you go. Yeah, that's it. These are still dirty. By dirty, I mean literally they got dirt on them, okay, because they were in the leaves. But I don't feel too bad about that. Two. And you can see the production value of storing them in one place and working on them in another. And that's just the thing. You just keep doing that. I see two nails. There are some nails in this fence. I don't think I've put nails in this fence, but then termited. Mildly terminated. I don't even care. I won't even cut that off. I won't do anything with that. Just leave it the way it is. I don't actually have a bad relationship with nature. I have a working relationship with nature. And there's two more broken screws there. And I don't mind that I shared my fence with the termites a little bit. People will say, well, once you get an insurance bill for the repair of your foundation, they'll change your mind. Well, okay, fine. I live in a house that was completely eaten up with termites at one point. And I went through and I killed them with the little product you could buy at Orchard Supply or wherever. They don't exist anymore. Those, it's a little spray bottle, you spray it. And in some places, I actually took wood out, cut wood out in places where it wasn't structural. And I replaced it with new wood with the appropriate brackets and supports and everything. Now that's. I got rid of the termites that way. So this is interesting. So this screw broke off. The other side does not have a header; it has the points. How that happened? So the vice grips on here, and just turn that out as if it had a head on it, like that. You can also, if you want, if it's not turning out properly or it's too hard, you can turn it out a little bit like this, and then take your pry bar and use and pretend that it's a nail instead. You could put your pry bar under that. Just pull it out. You split the wood and you break the wood and all that. But it's just sometimes a quicker way to do it. So that's that. Saying, well, this is a lot of work. Cougar, what are you doing? Buy that wood at the box shop. Well, it wouldn't be smooth like you think it want. Yeah, you just pin it up, right? Just go out there and screw it right in. Nail it in if you want to. Get a nail gun. I think it could be quicker. Well, that's true. Or I should say that was true at one time. And I, knowing that I was going to be doing this work here several weeks ago, I went to the box shop. I went to buy some wood because I knew I didn't have enough. I knew I was going to replace some wood, but I also knew I had parts of the fence that didn't have wood. So parts of this fence that were actually plywood. It's horrendous. Okay, just what? Someone thinking. Anyway, it's plywood. So I knew I didn't have wood, so I was going to have to replace the plywood with wood. And I went to the box shop, and they didn't have redwood at all. Redwood board, I should say. They have those types of redwood. And, now that was in alignment with an observation. If you've been paying attention to things, you're in 2021, the year 2021. We have a shortage of wood products. Those have hands on me, so we'll just do this. I didn't find redwood. Now, fortunately, they had a big stack, a unit of cedar. So I bought my cedar. I was happy to have it. Not the first choice. I kind of like the richness of redwood. I tend to go that route, even though it's more expensive. But this time I was happy to have the cedar. And it turns out, once I put this fence stain.
You would also pay $9 for the redwood. You only paid $4.
Yeah, so she was just saying, my wife was just listening in and saying that, reminding me of my son, who was the gentleman, some fence or parents' fence. They paid $9 a piece for redwood fence boards. Tell you that you can get. It's what I got. I got cedar, and that's what you're going to live with.
No, I know. I just was wondering, do you have to protect it more?
Nope. Nope. People put up cedar fences all the time.
Okay. So this is good.
Yep. All right. So I just had a screw that was in the wood that that had a head. I tried to turn it out with the screwdriver, but there weren't enough threads and there wasn't enough wood for it to bite and screw out. So it's just turning in the hole. But you can't leave it in there, okay? So it's a hammer. This is a pin punch. Pretty handy tool to have, and I just pounded it out. Since it was turning in the hole, obviously it wasn't biting very much. It just came right out. But you can't leave anything in the wood if you're going to plane it. And even at that, I'm going to hit a nail, or I'm going to hit a screw today. That's just the risk you take. My planer has carbide teeth. Carbides are very hard as compared to hard steel or just mild steel. And plus, carbide bits, there's like 60 or 80 of them in there. They have 4 sides and they're held in with screws. So when you damage a carbide in the cutting head of the planer, you just take the top off. It comes off with simple tools. In fact, the planer provides it for you. And you scrub the dirt off, where the rails were. You just loosen that carbide with the tool provided. Turn it according to turn. It's got 4 faces. Turn it according to turn. And set you back down. Well, I've done it twice now. Try to be careful because I've done it twice. Full operation takes about 15 minutes, I guess. It's just the hazard of working with this old wood, but I'm okay working with the old wood. Once in a while, I have to update the teeth. If I break a carbide point and it's making streaks in the wood, or it's not, just that way. These things are hard to find. That's why it's easy to hit them later, because you just don't see them. Going back to this, there's not enough of the screw sticking out to put a vice grip on. It's almost hidden. I just barely noticed the tip sticking through. And that would have been something I hit with the planer. So, but I found it. So I'm going to use this pin punch to just pound it out. The wood is soft. The wood is pretty rotten, actually. It's old. These holes are old. And pounding it out is relatively simple. So glad I caught that. It's done. Back when I had a different planer, I actually started out with, I think it was a Ryobi. It worked pretty good for a weekend warrior. I don't have any complaints. But now I'm not a weekend warrior, and one of the things I learned with my Ryobi, with the knives, that when you're working with this old wood, really any wood, because anything with dull the blades, just cutting wood with dull the blades, you end up replacing the knives a lot, because when they get a nick in them, it's generally bolt knives, or all 3 in the case of the bolt product. And all 3 blades are nicked. They all hit the same thing and they're going down. So you end up having to replace a set of blades. They don't even sell them individually. You'd have to replace the whole set. And the set can cost $100. And more than once, I've gone into a project saying, well, I think I'll replace these blades. You know, before I start this new project planing these redwood boards, I'll replace these blades. I'm going to do the right thing. They're all nicked up and dull, and it causes the planer to make a lot of noise when they're dull. It beats the wood instead of cutting it, so I'm going to replace these blades. And I get 3 boards into it. Bang, hit a nail. Bang, hit a screw. Or hit a rock, a piece of wood that landed on the ground hard, picked up a little rock in the edge or something, didn't notice it. And you come along with the planer, hit that rock in the edge of the wood. Son of a gun. Brand new set of blades, took me an hour to replace them. Son of a gun. So, at some point, recently, I did a little bit of research. I found, again, and really check it. Sometimes there's just a point sticking out. Oh, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage because it's just a point. It's a tiny little piece of metal, but boy, it bummed out when it was something. So this is good. I'm saying. So I did some research and I said, oh, come on. There's got to be a better way than replacing the whole set of blades every time you hit a little nail. Fragment of something. And I was looking for carbide blades. So normally people will have a straight piece of blade, looks a bit like a hacksaw blade, but without it's just it's called a blade. It's thin, long, hard metal. And it's sharp on one side. Well, it actually should be sharp on two sides. You can flip them, right? So you get two cuts out of it. It's like the old safety razor, the left safety razor. It's sharp on two sides. And, of course, now everybody uses disposable razor, which is really sharp on one side and throw it away. Welcome to the new consumer economy. Back in the day, you had a blade that was sharp on two sides. So you can flip it over. These blades and these planers are that's the same way. They're sharp on two sides. So the blade, you got actually two sets of blades. And you bark one side of that blade, it's all messed up and angled. You hit something, then you can working with gloves. You got to work with gloves. You see why? You're running your hand over this thing and you're feeling anything sticking up that point, any sharp. Without gloves, you're going to die. You're going to sliver, hate yourself, you're going to cry, bitter tears. I can't tell you how many times I sliver so. So I was researching, got to be better, researching carbide blades. Found this product from Grizzly. It was a helical head. I talked about this yesterday, but I'll mention it again. It's a helical head, so the knives are not straight. The knives are in a spiral. Pencil sharpener, the old school pencil sharpener, literally old school. When you were in elementary school, a pencil sharpener on the wall, there's a door. You go over there and you sharpen your round pencil. That thing had helical blades inside. Well, this cutting head had helical blades, but it wasn't even a single blade in a helix. It was a set of carbides. That was from Grizzly. That's great. Wait, they're selling the head. Where's the motor? Where's the machine? And they said, this head was made for a very popular third-party product, DeWalt. I said, well, imagine that. Now, I didn't have that planer, but my other planer was dying. I wasn't happy with it. Actually, it was a DeWalt too, but it had gotten really old.
Oh, Dad?
What?
They're ready to have us evaluate it and take them. So, you want to
Go ahead.
No, I want you to look and see if you're happy. That's what he asked me to have you do. Okay, sweetheart?
All right. I have a chore to do. We've got a tree trimmer coming to the house, so I'm going to have to quit my audio for a moment. I want to go back as soon as I can.
You have your mask? Cat. This one?
Oh, here it is.
Okay, this is it. Hi, Joey. It's Tessa. What? Oh, no, not at all. It's, I just wanted to reuse it if you wanted to, Okay, good. And also, Joey, I was just talking, there's that corner lot. You could also dump some of it over on that corner lot. You see the one that's on the other side of us? On that corner, you could get to that lot too, right? I'm trying to reach the owner. Right, if you want. Otherwise, we'll just, whatever you want to do is fine in terms of, but Alan, you have Alan's number, right? And so, right, and he said it was okay, so I wouldn't even worry, just do it, right? Right? Yeah, that's good. Okay, good. All right, good. So, that's fine, Joey. And then the other thing is, when I can call you sometime, and then you could put it over on that corner lot. They might use it where the sycamore is. There's a sycamore on the corner. All right, let me see. I have your Joey's on the phone. Yeah.
Okay. It looks good.
It looks good.
It's fine.
I have this.
Done.
It's done.
Now, I made this fan
No, I know, I can agree with that. I got it. No, I know the thing. So, okay, my husband's happy. You're happy?
Yeah.
No other thing. All right, sweetie. I'll go find Robert. Which one is Robert? I'll just ask who's Robert. All right, sweetie, and I'll bring out the money right now, right? All right, sweetheart. All right, thanks so much, Joe. Bye.
All right. I'm back. I think I'm back. Yes.
Back.
What?
Back.
What is it?
I want to ask about Daddy Grant. Who's on that bridge up there? Why are we getting that grant? Wait, I'm asking. That grant used to be done. Look, I think I'm wrong.
First moved into this house, there were no trees in the front. Well, it wasn't a house, it was a bar. So there were no trees in the front. And my wife worked with the local, well, it's the city's street tree initiative. They want more street trees for very good reasons. Makes the sidewalks walkable, the neighborhood's more inviting, all that. So we got some free oak trees planted in the front of the house. 2 of them. They're kind of close together, and I didn't say anything about it at the time. I figured it was probably going to be a problem later. One of them was pretty close to I guess I'll call it a utility pole. What it is the pole on our side of the street that they bring in these service wires on. So before the service bounces over to your house, they come across the transformers across the street. They come over, they drop the service onto a pole. They drop the service on the pole, and then they run it to your house. So it's not really a power pole; it's just a service pole. And there's some other wires, cable, telephone. Well, the trees grew up. The trees, they don't grow up. They branch. And they're branching at the top, they're branching at the sides. And when the tree gets to a certain height, it sends out a branch. That branch just goes laterally. It just keeps going. It gets bigger. And when it gets bigger, it gets heavier. And when it gets longer, it gets heavier. But it doesn't grow up. All the growth is at the tips. Some people say, well, duh. Some people would be amazed at that. I was like, oh, that's what trees do? Amazing. So these branches had grown off the trunk, out through these service wires, through the cable, the phone, and the utility. And then as they got bigger and had more leaves on them, they sagged. sagged onto those wires. So we had to have trim those branches off of those wires so the wires lift back up again. They did a great job. They were small branches. No, not one of them was more than 2 inches. Young trees. Valley oaks, native trees. So they just cut those up, and I had to inspect them to make sure they did the job. It's pretty obvious what the job was. They did the job. On that. And we paid $650 for it, and they're bonded and insured and the whole thing. And cost of being a homeowner. If you're going to be a homeowner, you're going to have expenses like that. They come out of the blue. We didn't know those trees were going to settle on those wires. Noticed it one day, and the neighbor pointed it out. I kind of already knew it. And we're just getting around to getting those trees off. So, cost of doing business, as they like to say. So I cleaned up these boards. I took out all the metal in them that I could find, scrubbed them with a brush, and they're ready to go through the planer. So I'm going to bring that beast out here. It's pretty deep in the garage. Let's see, I can repurpose, position this camera a bit. I think I will clear a space over here. I've already set up the supports. Planer over here. You need to be able to get around the planer. You have to look on both sides. You feed the wood in on one side, pull it out, and look at it comes out. That's how that works. I think this will be fine. So I'm going to see if I can turn this camera a bit. That's my garage out there. This is such a wide angle lens. It looks like the garage is 100 yards away, but it's not. So, ironing board I'm supposed to fix because it broke. Man, you need an ironing board. You need an ironing board. It's a good metal ironing board. I like metal. Love it. The shavings and the dust that comes off. Yes, it makes so much mess. Shop vac is pulling the shavings and the dust, both of which are abundant. So heavy. Turn this. Feed. Get around the thing on one side, not both sides, just one side. Now, this isn't too bad because this allows the shop vac to an outside outlet that I know is part of the house. I just inhaled something. In fact, I wear a mask when I'm playing, so I'm just right here. Put this mask on. I'm already choking up. It's really windy out here today. Surrounded by trees and brush and all kinds. So let's see. I'm going to turn this. Shop, right? See what's happening with the planer. All right, there's the planer. And it's going to be headed that direction, so I'm just going to leave it like that. That's good enough for now. This is the mask I'm going to be wearing. This is actually a mask for a welder's helmet. I bought it for welding. I do quite a bit of welding. I've done more in the past when I was building bicycles, but it's still really useful. You see it's low profile. It fits under the welder's helmet, so that's kind of cool. You buy these at welding shops. It's really good for metal vapors, which is what you're trying to protect yourself from when you're welding. You don't want to breathe that stuff. You'll be in trouble. And I think it's an N100. Not perfect filtration, but plenty good. And as a dust mask, it's really hard to beat. So I'm gonna leave this right here. It's a reminder to put that on. And the only other thing you need, working with boards, planer, always have your gloves. It's guaranteed. So those two are right there. Now I'm going to assemble all this. I have a hose that I plug in the planer can. Planer came with an adapter for use with shop. So using that, I had to take the hose off. It fit right perfectly. Shop vac is a 5 gallon. Big. 16 gallon. I find that I do not fill the shop back up with shavings. Long before that, the filter gets full. The filter gets full, and it just doesn't work anymore. In fact, the planer, the motor, the blades going around, it blows so much air out of the exhaust that it will actually overwhelm the shop vac, which has its own motor, and it starts blowing the shavings out from under the lid of the shop vac. So that's when I know I have to clean the filter. Now I'm just going to go ahead and clean that filter now. There's really nothing to see, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you this. It generates, when you're using a planer like this, especially in this utilization, we've got these fairly long, wide boards, and you're planing them multiple times. You generate a huge amount of shavings, okay? And rather than, I keep the shavings. I put the shavings in the compost. The Redwood shavings are not the best compost, but my wife likes it. She likes the brown matter. She calls it. So I keep the shavings, and to facilitate that, so it's not back and forth in the compost bin, I have a garbage can that I use for that purpose. So let me get that. Back here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. Chop that. It's almost ready. This is no chop back. I can do it. Of course, the manufacturer will tell you, replace your filter every 6 weeks. I've never replaced this thing like 20 years old. This filter is 20 years old. I'm not even kidding. It's the original one that came with the shotgun. So, sorry, Kathleen. That just set me off. Gets me coughing, gagging, sneezing, having allergies. Oh, you still feel it. Oh, I have a allergy to dust, like mold dust and paddocks and things like that. Sets me right off. So once I get around this, I definitely put off that. We'll just talk it out.
Shop back, much better built. It's not going to be good, but it's not up to that. But this one keeps working, so I'm using it. Look at that. It just died already. What was this other one? Backmaster Professional, 16 gallons, same capacity, 6.5 horsepower, about 50, same horsepower rating. And coming over, I guess I have to keep using it. Okay, got it. So I'll probably get the hose out of the way because the one piece comes on this side, I'll be walking back and forth like this. Work with the work piece as it goes through. And so the basic operation, so run this on high speed, two-speed plant, slow speed for finish surfaces, and high speed for like getting it done. So because I'm not really good at carpentry, I'm just doing recovery, right? Put on high speed, high speed. It turns out carbide blades, carbide cutters on the spiral head, they're amazing. They're just absolutely amazing. So there's really no compromise. Now, my boards are showing the wrong place over there. So I'm going to set up small process it, okay. Process is cool. But just imagine there's a pair of sawhorses back there behind. Well, on the feet side of the plane, there's a pair of sawhorses. Now I'm going to carry all this wood. Process pieces on one side of the sawhorses, and so I'll show you that. I put the unworked work pieces on one side, and as they come through, the finish and stack here. So we're going to move from the back of the stack to the front of the stack. Back to the side, front of the stack. And then I'll build plane. Now, I don't do anything else with these boards because they're going right back on the fence. I don't cut the ends off. I don't cut the sides off. I just plane the surface area. Okay. I'll paint everything, but I'm just going to plane the surface area. So that's how that operation is going to work. It's going to be noisy. Shop back here. There's planer. There's a tremendous amount of racket as far as I'm concerned. So I want to turn the audio off for this operation. What you're going to notice is I'm feeding from one end through, and I'm adjusting the height of the thickness plane, just for the height of the blades, with the crank over here. You can't quite see it. There's a crank over here. Counterclockwise to raise the head, and clockwise to lower it. So when I start a cut, that's a bit of a view here. When I start a cut, I have a new piece of wood. Not so much a problem with the wood. But a new piece of wood. I try to feed it in. Yes, so I try to feed it in until it fits because the deck is too long. So I try to get up. Put this piece in. There's a little gauge, you can't see it on the camera. But there's a little depth gauge right here in the front, right? I can see it. And so it tells me how much I'm going to cut off. So if I can make that depth gauge move a little bit, then that's how I'm going to start my cut. Again, I'm not being precise. I'm not actually thickness planing this to a particular thickness. I'm planing this wood to a particular quality. I'm trying to get all the eroded wood out, the grayed out, weathered wood, and any obvious imperfections. Now, I'm not even going to go that far. Just when it's flat and most of the eroded wood is gone, like 90% of it, I stop. And I still need a fence board. I don't want to cut all the fence board away trying to get the perfect wood. It's just not worth it to me. And honestly, I don't mind the imperfections. I think they give the wood a lot of character. The old saw marks, I'll leave those in. I don't care. It's a fence. And even when it's siding, well, you can't see it in this picture, but some of this wood made its way out to the side of the house. It's siding. I made it siding. I just loved it. All the imperfections are fine. And, any loose knots, you got to cut those out. That's good. So I turn on the shop vac first. Then I turn on the planer. And then I do my production of all these pieces back here. They're going to go through. They're going to go through on one side, and I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to bring it back to the back. Then I'm going to put half a turn on this crank, lowering the bed by half a turn. And I pass that piece through again. And I look at it. And then if the first side wasn't really done completely, I flip it back to the first side, half a crank down, pass it through again. And then I look at the other side that I just cranked. If it's not quite right, I flip it back to the second side, half a crank down, I pass it through. And I just keep doing that. I keep flipping the board, I keep evaluating the board, I keep flipping the board, half a crank down each time, until it's okay on both sides. Okay on both sides. And if one of the sides is still really rough, I'll just keep cutting that side through. But until both sides are good enough, I just keep doing that, focusing on one side if I have to. Once you get one side good, there's no reason to work it anymore. But the reason I flip it every single time is I've learned over time that the first pass will clean the wood up. And actually, the first pass on the first side, that side is now flatter than it was originally. The cup has been taken out, the knots have been knocked down, other things. And that side is now the better side to feed through down. The deck is really smooth. And so to do the second side, I flip it over and do the first side underneath to slide better on the deck. And I've discovered that you want to do both sides real quickly, a very light cut, so that you flatten them a little bit, take some of the cup out, and make them smooth enough to slide through easily. Also, the boards are not the same thickness end to end, and so you'll be fighting with that a little bit. So you're making them uniform, you're making them smooth, it'll pass through easily, and then when the board has been kind of conditioned a little bit, and it works easily with the machine, then you kind of work on which side needs work. So the first pass through is a quick flip, just to get the board conditioned, and then I start working on the smoothness. So that's what the process is. I'm not going to talk anymore. In fact, I'm going to turn off the audio, because I got to tell you, it's noisy. So if I have any thoughts, I'll shut everything down and talk. I will probably have to shut everything down anyway, because this shop vac is going to get full, and it's going to start blowing out shavings around the lid. And I'm going to have to empty it. I may have to do that twice. There's something about this wood. It's old, it's dusty, and the filter's also really old. So I'll probably do myself a favor by either trying to find a replacement filter, even though this one still kind of works, or just retiring this thing for some of the purpose. We'll see. All right, audio's off. Here we go. All right, audio's back on. I'm trying to mention something. You have to wear great protection with this stuff. I've got some. Don't skip. Okay. This pattern actually isn't as noisy as some of the other ones, but I've got some nice 3M personal protective equipment that I wear for these operations. The mask, the gloves, and the hearing protection. If you don't do this, you're done. Okay, you just got to do this. So I'm going to put these on, and we'll start over. I also have a nice set of, I was mentioning this while I'm talking on the subject. I've got a nice set of, also 3M, I didn't know this, also 3M headset. They're also earmuffs. They've got the combination of soundproofing cups plus speakers. And it's Bluetooth, so I can even take phone calls on these things. Rechargeable. I don't know, I had these things for a couple of years now. Really good, really good purchase. I'll just wear these all day and listen to music and do my woodwork and never take them off. It looks pretty good. I'm not going to wear it for this one. Put those off to the side. All right. All my personal protective equipment is on. I think we can do this. Audio off.
Okay, say a couple things here. First two went through fine.
I don't hear you, Ted. I don't know if it's working yet, because I'm not hearing you on the line.
That's because I had to turn it off. Can you hear me now?
Oh, it's on now?
No, it's not. Now it's on. Should be able to hear me.
Change the viewpoint to the, let's see. So, change it to look at the planer?
Yeah.
I don't see that on here's this.
Maybe you're not connected to the internet or something. Okay. All right, try reconnecting.
Okay, yeah.
It's also
I mean,
possible. It's also possible the stream broke, but it looks like everything's working for me. So if it's not working for you, our wife is on the stream trying to evaluate things. Why don't you try reconnecting? You may have dropped off.
I am connected. I'm on internet. I'm on the Sprint. I don't go to Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're not on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
use Sprint.
Anyway, it seems to be working.
It says it's live. It says there's two watching, but maybe that's you too.
Well, yeah, whatever. So I got other things to talk
All right,
about here. Okay,
all right.
besides that, could you? Okay, number one, you can't come through
Okay,
here
fine.
at all. Don't
All
even
right.
try.
All right.
Go through the house or something.
All right.
Okay, this is not a path for you.
Okay. So anyway, it's not streaming. I don't see.
Well, I can't worry about that right now.
It's
So
supposed to be looking at the planer, right?
yeah, I can't worry about that right now.
All right.
Could you go in the house and reconnect and see what's going on?
All right,
Because
fine.
I can't worry about that right now. So I stopped this to point out a couple of things. One, as this board was going through, the planer hit this knot. This is what we call a loose knot. Probably a dead branch, a tree grew around, and the planer hit that knot and just obliterated it, destroyed the pieces. The knots are usually hardwood. Hardwood, more fragile, easier to break through when it wants to come out. We'll just do that. Now, if this was green wood, it probably wouldn't have destroyed itself like that. But since it is dry and old, these knots just destroyed themselves. So, for a backyard fence, and see you've got kids in the backyard or a swimming pool or something, big holes like that would maybe not be what you want. Privacy concerns, whatnot. For my purposes, it's fine. You can cover these with other pieces of wood. You can cover a piece of redwood into a little square or something. Just screw it in on top of that. For the most part, you probably wouldn't even notice if it's all staying the same way. You might not even notice. Pointed out to somebody they might notice. If you want to be OCD about that, you can be that way. But no one else will know. You'll have to point it out to them before they'll know. So I'm I just glue them on, or I've got a small stapler that sets really small nails. I nail it in. Now this one, I stopped right here. I think this part because I wanted to explain something. Yeah, I started this end here, and it went through, and it stuck. Now this board has already been cleaned. Well, no, this is the first time through on this board. But the first time through is when you run into this problem, okay, where the board gets stuck. Why did it get stuck? So you don't always know why it got stuck. Maybe there was a knot here that was sticking up so much that it actually caught on the inside of the machine, and it just caught and it couldn't go any further. That happens quite a bit. The other thing that happens, though, and you won't even notice it looking at the board, but the board may not be plain. It may be that one end is smaller than the other end. Okay, this actually happens quite a lot. Maybe one board out of 10 or 20, they'll be tapered. Narrower at one end than at the other. It's not like I'm showing here, like 2 inches, but it doesn't matter because you're planing off a 1/16 of an inch. So if it rises in thickness from whatever it is by about 2, even another 1/16 of an inch, it'll catch. It'll catch on the mechanism. And it's kind of supposed to do that. The mechanism acts as a gate so that you can't start with one thickness of wood and end up feeding into it a much thicker piece of wood. That would just destroy the inside of the machine because it can only take off so much wood at a time. So when you set the gauge and you start feeding, if it notices, meaning there's a little gate there that has to clear, if it notices that the wood has gotten thicker, it catches on that gate and it stops. And that's actually a feature. That's not a bug. You don't want to feed a huge piece of wood in and expect the machine to do the right thing. Now, this machine is so powerful that we'll probably just chew through it, but it doesn't matter. There's a gate there that's there for a reason. So what happened was it stopped. It stopped feeding. Now, sometimes in that case, I'll go forward and I'll raise my hand on the machine like this, and I'll grab the end of the board and I'll give it a little tug to see if I can get it going again. Okay, but that's not really how this works. When it catches, you have to adjust the machine. Okay, and what I did is from back here, even though I was working on the wood and trying to coax it through a little bit, I reached over and I turned this crank a half a turn counterclockwise. The way this machine works, it's clockwise brings the deck down when you're cutting. Counterclockwise brings the deck up when you're not cutting as much. So you gotta know these things, right? So I just reached over the top of the machine and turned this half a turn counterclockwise to bring the deck up, and then I was able to feed it. Okay. And I was able to successfully pass the board through and get more stuff cut off. Now, at this point, this board has a step in it right here. There's a step. This was the original cut depth installed. I lifted it up half a turn, and then I was able to continue. So you don't fight with the board, you don't grab it and wrench it around and try to pull it through or push it through from the other end. Those are things you don't ever want to do. You don't ever want to do that. This machine is designed to stop working, to stop feeding when it senses there's a problem, and you need to roll with that. Okay. So I stopped. I turned it. Well, it stopped moving. I fiddled with it a little bit. It didn't make any difference, so I didn't fight it. I stopped that fiddling with it, and I reached over and I turned this a half a crank to bring the deck up. In this case, that means counterclockwise. And then it continued feeding. And so I had a step here because I was planing at one depth and I was planing at a second depth. But that's because this wood has 2 thicknesses. One end is thicker than the other. And I didn't know that. Now, if I had started this wood the other way around, then I would have set the depth for the thick end, not knowing it was thicker, but that's how it would have worked out. And then as I was planing through, it would plane the thick end, and then at this point, it would stop planing. It would stop removing wood. And you might think, oh, my planer's broken. No, it's not. The wood changed depth. It got thinner. Why is it thick at one end and thin at the other? Well, that was just something happened at the sawmill. Maybe their machine was loose, and as the wood went through, the machine was moving a 16th or a 32nd of an inch. And someone probably later that day went through it. tighten some bolt or other up and then quit doing that. But for this particular cut of wood, as it went through, it was sawn thicker on one end than the other. Now, what I would generally do in this case, since I now know that this other end is thicker, I'll actually turn this piece of wood around. Turn this piece of wood around. And I know something about this wood that I didn't know before. Turn this piece of wood around. Now, this end is the thicker end. It's going to feed through the machine first. And this is the tail end. It's going to be a little thinner. And eventually, of course, because this is a thickness planer, the whole piece of wood will be the same thickness. That wasn't actually the target, but because that's what this is, you'll get that. So that's what a thickness planer does. It makes it all the same thickness. Now, if you have a target thickness like 5/8 of an inch or 1/2 inch or something, it'll do that too. In fact, you can set a dial here for the actual thickness you want. It's got some presets: 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4. Not really useful. I never use that. I set it 1/2 inch to set it to something useful. But in any case, it will all be the same thickness because you're feeding it through. So I had to stop. I had to make an adjustment, get it to go through at all, so I wanted to just make sure about doing that. So now we continue. It's tempting to actually empty the shop vac, but I'm going to go a little further and see. I'm actually not going to wear the mask right now because it's pretty breezy out here. I'm not emptying the shop vac, so I'm going to leave it. When I'm in the garage and I'm dealing with the planer, and dealing with the shavings inside the shop vac, then I have to wear the mask because the dust just accumulates. It's not really good. So, but out here, there's so much in the breeze. So everything is so open. I think I can skip that part. So back to work. This current setting of the bed height was good enough to get this through. That's all it was good enough for. So I'm going to run this through again on this, cutting this side again. I know that there's a discontinuity right here. And I'm going to have to turn down clockwise, put the bed down. I'm going to run this through again and finish cleaning this up. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. But I know there's a problem with this board. One end is thicker than the other, so I really have to take care of that first. And I'm going to turn the audio off. There's actually audio on this tripod, so you're still hearing the planer run. I think that's good. So let's continue making those. So this is bugging me. I was mentioning the how this thing can get nailed or something, and you get a damage to one of your teeth. So there's no way you can see this on the camera, but there's a ridge right here. And because it's on one of the teeth that's going around, this ridge extends all the way down. Now, I can tell you, as I'm feeding this in, I feed on the left side of the bed, and then the right side, left side, right side. I'm trying to wear all the teeth kind of at the same side, same rate, right? And while I'm feeding in it, I can see it's coming out. There's a ridge in the wood right here. There's a ridge. So I know that somewhere in here there's a tooth on that helical wheel that's been damaged. It might even be two teeth, but it's either one or two. So some of it's pretty good. But just right here. Now, these are fence boards, and I probably shouldn't worry about it. No one's going to notice it. But it's coming out, and I'm noticing it. So I'm just OCD enough. I like that. Now, I'm saying I don't like that. It's a pretty good ridge. But paint it, you won't be able to see it. Maybe it's not a big deal, but it's a pretty good ridge. I'm wondering if I just don't like it. I think I'll let it go. See if I hit one more thing. If I hit one more screw in this batch. This actually may be damaged from some other session, but if I get one more ridge, then I'm going to stop this operation. I'm going to fix the carbides. Right now, I guess I'm going to let this go. And, but anyway, I see it. Bothers me. I don't like the look of it. It's on one side of the machine, not the other. So one side of my board won't have it. I'm alternating back and forth. So when it comes time to put up the board, I may put up the part with the ridge on it on the neighbor's side just to be shitty. That's not really true. I probably won't even notice it. But in any case, that's what's happening. So I thought I'd stop and say something about that. Soldiering on. Turning the audio off. Looking this over. Well, that ripped it. I hit a nail. You can see this on the camera in front. Right here. Shiny thing there. A little bit of a hole on this side. Right on this end, there was just a tip sticking through. I didn't catch it when I ran my hands over the board. I had the legs on it, and I didn't catch that tip sticking through on that wood. So, see it? It's shiny. Well, it's shiny because I just cleaned it off, right? It's fresh metal. It was all rusted before. So, you kind of see it here. There's a ridge right here that I was complaining about not 5 minutes ago. That's the ridge that I was complaining about. And right next to it now, there's going to be a second one because I hit a nail. Now, actually, to be honest, it's just barely sticking up. But it's there. Sure as anything, it's there. And I see a couple more over here, too, on this board. But now there's two. Now there's two ridges, and I'm pissed. So that's probably two carbides I've got to turn. But before I do that, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that screw out. I'll do it right here. That's the downside to using these old boards. So there it is. It's coming out. There. The punch is pushing it out. And it does, there's no real resistance to pull it out. There we go. There it is. Booger. Piece of the screw, the head broke off. The head on it. It broke off and didn't catch it. It got planed off. So now I got a carbide in there with the nick in it. And, what to do. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue. They're not big. They're small ridges. Honestly, it's not the worst. And by the time you paint it, they do kind of disappear. Excuse me. They do kind of disappear, so that's fine. We'll continue. They're not real big ridges. So I'll put up with it. For the sake of getting things done, I'll put up with it. Where's mine? Yeah, see there. Let me check that. Top of that. Yeah, that's so might as well do it now. Well, the machine's not running. I'll go to that and put the mask back on. Where is there? Glasses on. Mask on. So I don't know what's going on. This is, wood is catching halfway through, and I notice underside of it. Oh, I see what it is. So we're done. Another screw. Oh, that's in a strange place though. It was catching on the bed. It was catching on the bed. Oh, that's these evil scratches. Another type of problem. That's a screw in a knot. Lord. That. Well, it was on the underside, so it never. Yes. On the underside. So the blades never caught it on this side. It was on the underside. What it was doing was, the reason why I couldn't feed this through is this screw that was sticking through was gouging the bed. It was gouging pretty good. So it's a good thing I stopped because it would have kept gouging it. I'm not worried about that. All it does is feed the work piece through. I don't like to look at that. It scratches bother me. I can always sand it off. Sand it to that, but I'm glad that it was on the other side. It was gouging the bed and not hitting the blades. But that's another screw. So let me see. That's in a knot, so that's going to be a little hard to get out because knots are hard. So let's see. This piece of equipment. Let's get this started. It's just the tips sticking out. Very side. So that was good. That's why I didn't get the planer blades. But now I have to pound a screw through a knot. Yeah, a big tool. Got a bigger pin punch. They say brute force isn't doing the trick. Using enough brute force. Pound the entire knot out, but I've never seen anything in a knot. I don't put screws in knots. That's up, so that's it. But for the test, or, say this piece is not effective. So that piece of screw screwed into a knot and broke off. So who knows how that happened. But I caught it. It was dragging on the bed, scratched up the bed. The bed doesn't do much. It ends up scratching my wood. I'll do some project later. I'm passing through wood that I'm really happy with, but it's coming out on the other side with a scratch on it. And I'll know, oh, well, that's that stupid problem with the bed. I may have to flip this machine over, take the bed off from the other side, sand the whole thing, put it back together. I mean, as you can imagine, that's like pretty low on my list of priorities. So we'll see if that's ever an issue for this machine. And in the meantime, soldering on. And on some level, I'm happier that it scratched the bed with the tip and not barked one of my carbides. So here we go. Done. This side, it's catching in the middle. The reason why it's catching is because this point, this sharp point, is coming through the machine. Back here, it doesn't catch. It's flexible, move up and down. It's in the machine, and those rollers press down on it, and those carbides start working across the surface. And at this point, it could gouge into the steel, and then it would stop. I was thinking, well, maybe it's just stick in the middle. You know, it didn't stop it, but stick in the middle. I looked at it, like, well, no, actually it's not. So then I had to look for something else. When I saw all this metal strewn out across here, I clued into the fact that there was something tearing up there. Of course, the machine itself was flying to pieces, but it wasn't. It was just a piece of a screw on this knot tearing out the bed of the plane. Mystery solved. The knot's a little bit damaged. It's probably going to fly to pieces. But all in all, I'm not too sure what happened. So, turn on the power back, turn on the planer, adjust the height of the flap. Go ahead. I'll turn on my audio. So I just want to mention something real quick about evaluating wood itself. So this wood is what we would call cut. What that means is that, look at it end on, it's bowed not in its length, this is length, but it's bowed in its width. So you can kind of see because it's gone through the planer once on each side, well, twice on each side actually. Planed this first time twice. This side is planed in the middle, but not on the edges. All right. This side is planed on the edges, but not in the middle. That's because it's cut. Okay, it's bowed this way. So these edges are higher than the middle, so they get cut first. On the other side, it's exactly the opposite. These edges are lower than the middle, so the middle gets cut first. So when I pick up the board and I take a look at it and say, this board's cut. But what I do first is I put a flat side on the upward bowed part, on Vex part. Okay, a flat side of the convex part. Then I ran it through twice to get a good flat part on the convex side. Then I take a look at the cup side, and I'll pass this through a couple of times too, and I'll work off these horns. I'll run these down. This valley, this uncut valley, now I'll cut this down until this valley is almost gone. I'll leave a little bit. It's not working the board so bad that it ends up being really thin or taking a long time. And then when I'm happy that this side is flat, the concave side is flat, then I'll flip it back over and I'll work this convex side. But not a lot. Flattening out the high part in the middle actually gives you a pretty good piece of wood. You'll have these lateral sides that are still rough because you haven't cut enough wood to get to the sides. This is more of a problem. Having a valley that's unfinished is more visible. So I'll work this side more to get this concave part out, and then maybe I'll put one more pass through to get this convex part a little bit better. This batch of Redwood had a lot of it, so probably don't have to value it. Anyway, so I'm going to finish working on the side until this gutter is gone and here we're gone. This little strip in the middle is fine. If we get here, then I'll work on this side, maybe we'll go past. So I just want to point out my thinking on that. I actually did. When I started out, I was saying flip, 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 flip. Sometimes you don't actually do that. Okay. All right, so that's all I'm going to do on that one. We went through the planer a lot. A lot of it got taken off. It'll be thinner than the others because it had to be run so much, but so as not to make it really thin and really noticeable. So I went ahead and left this little bit of gutter in here. It's darker, and when wood stains, it'll be pretty obvious that there's an unfinished, uncut piece of wood here. But it's not too bad. For a fence, no one's going to notice. And there's lots of boards like that, so it's not like it's going to be the only one that has a piece of wood surface that never got planed. There's lots of other examples of that, including even in the stack up he's got right here. So it won't be bad. On the other side, the convex side, just the edges are left. I didn't bother cutting it. Clean all the edges. There's little bits of uncut wood here on the edge. But the middle is flat, and out here, the edges are flat relatively so. So I'm going to call that good. And that board is the last of this stack. There's 9 boards here. Yeah, 9 boards. And that's about how long it takes to do 9 boards. I'd say you're not having to pull out nails and fix your machine, which generally is the case. You don't have to fill it with the machine much or the boards. Then it's about, I'd say, less than a minute per board. The feed rate is pretty fast, but you have to look at the boards, evaluate them, flip them, decide if you need to cut both sides yet again, make up your mind. Sometimes you have a loose knot, so you can maybe knock that out before you feed it. You fiddle with the wood a little bit, evaluate it, and maybe about a minute apiece. So 9 boards, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. And of course, you have to stop once in a while. The shop vac gets full. And you have to clean the filter. That's just, if I had a new filter, if I bothered spending the money on a new filter, I would have to do that. So I probably should just go on the internet, see if I can even find it. Maybe they still make it. Maybe it's a standard app. I don't even know. Never looked. Let's see. So why do that? Why do what I just did? 9 boards, even at today's prices, according to my son, it's about $10 a board. Why do that? Well, that's $90. Start with. And then you say, well, that's fine, but you've got an $800 planer. You've got an old, but still, you'd have to have one. If you didn't have one, shop vac, probably $70. I think this Vac-Master was probably about that much. So $70 for a shop vac, $800 for the planer, because I had to put in an aftermarket head to really get a planer that would work with this kind of work, where you hit nails, and all you have to do is replace a carbide, so it's all the knives in the whole head, right? So $800 planer to save $90 on wood. Yeah. In fact, that's what you do. And it's not really saving the $90 in the wood. Okay, this is Redwood. And Redwood only really comes from one place on Earth that I know of. We have it here to use because it grows in the mountains near here. If you saw the trees they cut down to make these big planks, you'd cry. You'd break your heart. No, that's what they're doing. So when I have these boards, you see what they do to the forests. In fact, the damage they do to the forests is so horrendous that, I don't know if it's the state or the corporations themselves, they stop when they're in an area that there's a road going through. They fell the trees up to a point. But they don't drop every tree all the way to the road. They leave trees on either side of the road. And you go up that road and it switches back and it comes in higher on the mountainside, and you look back where you were, you'll see the trees are gone, except for a green belt on the other side of that road. Now, you might have all kinds of reasons why they leave those trees alongside the road. Well, they're near the road. They're dangerous to cut. The men don't run over by cars. They don't want to close the road. And I'm sure those are all reasons why you don't want to cut the trees right up to the road. But I tell you another reason. You don't want to cut all the trees right up to the road, because the place where you cut the trees is butt ugly. it looks bad, all right? And I'm sure they figured out the hard way sometime in the 70s or the 80s, families would be going out in the station wagon to go to the beach or go to Fort Bragg or someplace, and they'd be on that road and they saw nothing but 12-foot across stumps and limbs left in the place in the caterpillar, tractor tearing up the dirt. It made people mad. Okay, so just because you don't have to see that when you drive to Fort Bragg through the Redwoods, that's happening on the way to Fort Bragg in the Redwoods. It's not as bad now as it used to be. There's not as much clear cutting as there used to be, and maybe we should all be happy that we have the Redwood reports. I'm telling you. The way you do this, the way you play this game today, now, the way you play this game is you keep these boards. Your neighbors throw them away, you collect them. You buy yourself, in this case you make, an $800 planer, and you buy yourself a $65 shop vac. You sit out here under this elm tree, you plane that stuff. You use it. This wood looks amazing. It looks amazing. It looks better right now the day I bought it. And I'm going to stain this with a fence stain. Both sides. Repair this fence. New pressure treated rails. Fence posts if I have to. And I'm going to put this redwood fence board back up there on where it came from. And that's how you do this. You don't do this in other ways. That's how you do this. Okay? That's how you do this. That's why I do it.
When you do this, and maybe you just put it over like you know, put it in the refrigerator. That's the newest thing. Those are new ones. Do you mind throwing them in, or should I?
I'll put them in.
Yeah, you can use both refrigerators. Those are the new ones I just bought.
Do we
Whatever.
want to put them in a bowl or something? Because they're going to blow up.
Oh, I can do it. I figured out how to do it. I mean, you want to see what you can do.
I got a load of. What are these?
Oh, it's okay.
Tangerines?
Yeah.
Put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah. I can do it if you want.
No, it's not a matter of who's going to do it. It's a matter of how we put it in here so we don't go right back out.
Is that tray that you have right there? You see the tray that you have on top of the refrigerator? There's
Oh,
that.
that. Okay, yeah.
There's that. Yeah.
Does that work?
Is there any, you know what I could bring is that black tray that we said we don't want to
Well, that
cook
won't
on.
work in this little refrigerator, but it will work down here. Yeah, that would work. So,
I put them on the side doors and then
isn't there a bucket? A clear plastic bucket
oh, that one,
goes
bring
in
that
here?
over,
Why
yeah.
don't you bring that out too? And I'll put something in that.
All right, I'll get that.
Yeah, make sure that we have it. In the fridge. My wife brought out a basket of it's tangerines. Tangerines. We got these in the farmer's market. Saturday. They've been in the house and we've been grazing on them, but be in the refrigerator. Out here under my gazebo where my other equipment is, we've got outside the refrigerator. So have them. Some of these. Well, not every Saturday, but and we're mostly after the citrus because of our own job. So you can't eat all these tangerines sitting. You wouldn't want to anyway, probably. Some rickets or something. My dad always said, bigger rickets. Whatever that is. Yeah. never been hit. Some of this food, we're selling it right now. Some of it was last year, right? But it's a little early in the year, it seems to me, for citrus or apples. But they're selling us both citrus and apples. Look a little sad.
You ready? What? You're a little sad.
Maybe a little sad. There's some moldy ones.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sweetheart.
I'm just gonna. What do you want to do with the moldy one? Do you want to just throw those? What do you want to do?
Well, I might be able to cut it off. I'll take
I
them
don't know
back.
about that. They're
They
soft.
look pretty bad.
They're
Yes, sweetheart.
really
Yeah.
bad.
Well, if you want to put them here, and I'll.
They're really bad.
All right,
They're
then.
like liquefied inside.
All right, fine.
That's a
Well, thank you for doing it.
didn't like pull all the apples out of here later.
Yeah,
Are you gonna process all those?
I did already.
Okay.
I cut those up and I left just leave them there. I'll put them I left the bowl in the refrigerator and the other ones I froze. I'll just put them back in there and I'll take them. Okay, now you put them all away. That's it. And as thin as you can lay them out, the better. If you can lay them so that they aren't piled together, that's the best. Use as much refrigeration space.
Well,
Or I can do it later. I'll do it later.
they're kind of spread out.
Did you turn off your recording?
No.
No. Okay, good. All right, sweetheart. That's fine. I'll take care of it. Thanks.
All right. I think I will stop here.
We take a break.
I'm gonna take a break.
All right.
Stop here. Stop here.
You do that. I
I have to,
enjoy listening to you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have to reconfigure all this for the
Right.
next chapter of this. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream, and we'll be back in a little bit.
What's next after this?